I have to say it. I'm not going to be the Alabama coach. What?
How could you not predict at least 10 to 13 wins for next season is all I'm saying. But again,
Jesus Christ, 13 wins.
I said
you want an opportunity to play, and the Jets are giving me an opportunity to play.
I'm sorry. I just remember that you compared Gesicki to Kelsey. I'm sorry.
I did not. You know what?
About it, I am ready to get hurt again.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We are recording a few days late, but we're still here. This is the Battered Phins podcast. I am the bearded fanatic. That is the Battered Jets fan, Daniel Granada himself. And Danny, we're recording a few days late. We wanted to get this out early in the week, but sometimes life happens.
Yes,
little glitch in the road, but we're here, sir. How are you doing today?
I'm great. We both had a great Sunday, so no complaints here. I've been looking forward to this all week.
All right. So, we always talk about having big fans on the show, right? So I said this week we're going to switch it up a little bit. So I went a little oddball here. It's always Dolphin fan. I get to co-host with you, and you're a Jets fan. And I said I want somebody as middle of the pack of us. His fandom is huge with the Bills. And I said, let's bring on a Bills fan. And who better than my boy, Phil the man right here. He is the epitome of what I am as a Dolphins fan, what you are as a Jets fan. He is by far, he's from Buffalo as well. Like, I got somebody homegrown, not somebody who's a bandwagon fan. Phil, thank you so much for joining us today.
Phil the Bill.
Thank you for having me. I really wish I would have taken account of your names and come up with something cooler than just Phil, but we'll work on that for next time.
Like Danny said, we could call you the Lip if you want, but like you said, that's been coined already.
It's been. I feel like I'm stealing it. You know, I mean, it just doesn't feel.
So, Danny, you said you had a couple questions for me.
Yeah, I had a quick question. How many tables have you gone through?
Ooh, wow. That's a great question.
Believe it or not, I got, that trend started obviously not that long ago. And I was kind of older at that point, and I was deathly afraid of just making an ass out of myself. But here at the Bills Miami game down here, I got taunted. We were walking back from the game and these two girls just come out of nowhere like, oh, you guys aren't Bills fans unless you jump through a table, put on the helmet, and then you give me this Bills helmet, like jump through a table. And then my two friends, of course, put me under the bus like, oh, dude, you got to jump there. And I'm like, well, why me? Why did all come to me? And I'm the only one with kids in this group. Jump through. So of course I had to do it. So I put on the helmet and they videotaped it and I jumped through the table. Luckily I made it through and didn't damage anything.
Okay. So you've done it once.
I've done it one time. But I could tell you a million stories of, friends of mine went to when we went to the AFC Championship against KC. They went to that game. They went to every game. These are long-time season ticket holders. Their parents are season ticket holders. We're talking about, 2 to 3 generations of season ticket holders. So you can enter in the lottery for these playoff games, especially when COVID was a thing. There's little tickets. So they got entered a lot of times. They got the tickets. They went. A guy, now we're talking about AFC Championship. When's the last time the Bills, were even 94, 90, it's 93?
Like
right. So it was a hyped up game. This kid goes to jump off this up ramp and just misses the table, face plants out cold. All right, doesn't even get to go to the game. He's done. You know what I mean? He's not. They're lucky. Okay, he's alive. Thank God he's breathing. You hold a mirror in front of his face. There's fog in the mirror. Okay, he's okay. And then everyone just walks into the game. His friends are like, what are you doing? And my friends are telling me the story. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Imagine paying all that money, going all that way to go see this AFC Championship hyped up game and just getting making it in. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the fandom, but it has to be one of the stupidest traditions I've ever seen in my life. I've seen so many people miss that table and hurt themselves.
Oh, yeah.
It's insane.
And what they've done, we hold actually. I don't know if you guys know this, and I want to. This is actually one of those things that I'm actually proud of because the table thing. I don't even know why it started, how it started. To be honest with you, there's a couple of traditions that are actually kind of funny. One is, and a couple of them were featured on ESPN. The one that was featured on ESPN was the Dildo Brothers. I don't know if you ever heard of them.
No, I have not.
So twice, swear to God, they snuck it. Well, you don't have to sneak a dildo in.
And they threw it on the field.
They threw it on the field towards Tom Brady.
Yes, I remember that.
One came right by Tom Brady. They clue in on it, and the mom gets on like, yeah, these are my sons, like idiots, like on this thing. And then they did it again. They did it again at last year's playoff game. All right, they threw another dildo on the thing, and again, you got to give them props. Like, you knew it was coming. You knew it was coming. It was always at the Patriots fans. And then the second thing is that we held a record, and this is going back a few years, of the most fans getting caught having sex in the stadium. That's number 2 record. So 2 things about Buffalo.
Bills fans here, right?
Right, fans that you might not know.
So
Sex
love
and
dildos,
at
and
Orchard Park.
they love having sex at. It doesn't get. I know we're getting super off top, but doesn't it get freezing cold in Buffalo?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, we've been in games where you're just putting kegs in the snow in the tailgate. And another thing is, like, you start tailgating, like they open up the camper lot days. Like, so your Saturday night, people pull in their campers, they start tailgating all Saturday night into Sunday. They have a Bills Mafia house right next to the stadium that Bills Mafia bought. They turned into like a bed and breakfast where you could rent it out for the weekend and it sleeps up to 6 and tailgate all weekend there.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
all right. Well, let's get into the nitty gritty. And this past week, like Danny was saying, we experienced a very big dub for us. Danny, we coming into that game, we said that we thought they'd win. Never in a million years did we expect them to win the way they did. But I like this one, tale of 2 halves. And yeah, I did it. I followed suit to what everybody else is doing. And
the 2-0?
The 2-0, right? Yeah. And let's stick to that first half. When that first half started, I said, this is kind of what I was dreading. I was like, Tua doesn't look good. O-line doesn't look good. Defense doesn't look good against Lamar Jackson. And every single time they tried to zero blitz Lamar Jackson, it seemed like he was able to get it to the right guy. And every single time they caught the ball, it was like 20, 30 yards down the field. Catch and run. Just go. And we put up no points in the first quarter. We only did 7 in the second quarter. And at halftime, I remember texting you, and I said, this is what everybody's going to destroy him on. If you needed ammo, because like you said, we only put up 7 points that first game. Offensive points, I should say. 7 offensive points. We didn't look that great. And you said you have to look good this game. So right up to halftime, I texted you. I said, Twitter is going to kill him. I hadn't gone to Twitter yet. I went to Twitter, and it was just as bad as I thought. I want to get your insight as to what you saw from everything just in the first half itself, and give me your point of view on it.
Well, the first game, we were giving the O-line a lot of props that we thought that they held up better than we thought they would. But that first half, I mean, Tua had no chance. He threw 2 interceptions. One of them, an underthrow where Marcus Williams just ran right under it and caught it right at the sideline.
Yeah, he threw it into double coverage. The first one he threw into double coverage. The second one he just lofted up there trying to make a play to Jalen Waddle.
The thing is, the reason I've always thought that Tua has a chance to be a good quarterback, right? I've never thought he was going to be above average, but I think he could be a good quarterback because I felt like he makes good decisions. He's an accurate passer. I've always imagined him being like a Chad Pennington, right? Something along those lines.
So not Drew Brees, but Chad Pennington. I like that.
Right. But I mean, I'd kill for Chad Pennington.
Right.
But when he was making those throws, I don't know if he was getting outside of his game because he was trying to force it. Because at that point, you've gone through 6 quarters and you really haven't looked very impressive. Like, it's not just one game. At that point, they were trailing and things weren't looking good. So I felt like he was starting to force it. Like you said, he threw it into double coverage. He threw up that duck that ended up in Marcus Williams' arms. Like, it looked – I felt like everything that could go wrong was going wrong. Yeah. And like you said, I didn't get on Twitter either, but I would imagine that they were killing Tua in the first half.
Oh, they were killing
You
him.
said that you were going to kill Tua. You're like, if he doesn't improve, I'm going to kill Tua when we record.
I remember texting you, and I said, if there's a time that he needs to save grace, it's right now. Everything that people like his fan base, and I don't mean the middle of the pack fan base. I mean those outright outlandish. This guy's going to be a Super Bowl MVP this year. Those fans, for them to be right, he needed to come out and have an amazing second half. But we'll get into that in a second.
But it wasn't just Tua. I'm sorry, real quick. The defense, they had, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 12 men on the field penalties. When you start having errors like that, everybody is off their game at that point. The coaching staff, the players, those penalties are just lack of concentration at that point.
Bateman got shut down in the second half, and we'll get into that in a second. But for the most part, those 4 catches, 108 yards, those were almost all on Xavier Howard. Xavier Howard was giving up those chunks of plays. Now
He got roasted.
when I looked at him, I'm like, maybe he's injured, because for me looking at him, it didn't look like he was running full speed. Now, Phil, I know that you were enjoying some family time this weekend, so you didn't catch a lot of it.
Yeah.
But from what you did catch, you had to be like same old Dolphins. I'm assuming that thought was in your head.
I mean, given what so going into the season, obviously there's high expectations. You bring in a dynamic wide receiver like Tyreek Hill, you beef up the offensive line, you get a stud left tackle in
Teron Armstead, yep.
Right. I mean, so you're going to protect the guy, you're going to give him weapons. You got a new you guys kept the same defensive coordinator from
we did,
right? But you got a new coach, obviously, and a new offensive coordinator.
Yep.
But I mean, Mike McDaniels, he was under Kyle Shanahan, right?
Correct. Yep.
So, he's pretty much running that offense.
Right.
And so, you have this, I'm not going to lie, very scary, along with a stud defensive line. Maybe not a ton of experience at safety, but good safeties, definitely going to turn into probably great safeties.
Yeah.
Obviously 2 of the best corners in the league. One's obviously injured, but so I was always very scared going into this year. Then when it comes into and I was listening to your podcast last week about just Tua coming out and the offense not scoring points like what happened in previous years.
Yeah.
The defense kind of keeping you in it, and then again you have this first half and you're like, oh, here we go again. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden you have this completely different, second half of football. You know what I mean? Where he's getting these, and again, he's doing what he does. He's not going to make these like scramble around, make something out of nothing. He's going to get his hip set. He's going to throw these very, very accurate balls to 2 very, very talented wide receivers that, in my opinion, could do more with the football than, maybe any other wide receivers in the game.
Outside of your boy that we'll get into obviously here, because you guys have an amazing stud at wide receiver as well. But that's kind of where I wanted to lead into. And did the Phins win, in quotation marks, or did the Ravens lose? Because for the most part, I would say that a huge fan base, obviously our fan base, was definitely we won that game. Mm-hmm. I felt like we won that game. But 100%. Then you still had a lot of haters saying we really didn't win it. The Ravens lost it. And it's kind of like this comment that we're going to throw up, and I kind of want you to see it. Just listen to these comments.
Receiver in the NFL run straight down the field. Tyreek Hill. Nobody touched him. They're backpedaling. Tyreek is at a full sprint, and you're backpedaling. Let me show you right here. This is what you don't do. This is football 101 on defense. You don't just start a slow backpedal. Let Tyreek Hill run straight through the middle of your defense. Nobody's behind him. Nobody is there. So guess what? What does the quarterback do? Let me just throw the ball as far as I can. Let the fastest receiver in the NFL run for a touchdown untouched. Like, just look at this. Okay, let me show you another one. Let's just let him run down the field. Just run. Just go ahead. You run a 4.2, 40. Okay, great. I run like a 4.4. Yeah, you're going to beat me. Okay, let me just try and do that backpedaling. It's not going to work. So if you play the Dolphins, you know that, number one, you do not let that guy run untouched through the middle of your defense, or you will get hurt.
And that's kind of been the majority of the outside media, from the Colin Cowherds to ESPN. Yeah, they were saying, yeah, he did a good job of hitting these wide open wide receivers, which isn't that his job? Isn't his job to hit wide open wide receivers? He's not supposed to force it into triple coverage, turn the ball over, because then we'll have a whole completely different conversation. But the guy hit everybody who was supposed to hit. The Jalen Waddle hit for a touchdown, which I think, Phil, you told me you were able to catch it. He put that ball exactly where it needed to be, right above the linebacker and high enough that the DB wasn't going to be able to make a play on it, and it was all Jalen Waddle. The Mike Gesicki throw in the back of the end zone, people are like, oh, it was an overthrow. No, it wasn't an overthrow. Again, above the linebackers, and he put it to where he knew his basketball dunking tight end.
Only he can catch it.
Right. He was going to go up and grab that ball, and then that kind of started the trend. I'm sorry. I've been super harsh to it, but not to the level that these guys are being. But my harshness came from a lot of games that we won last year was in spite of him. And that's been my goal to here the first 2 episodes, that I wanted to see a game that we win because of him. And God damn it, he won this game. Nobody else won this game. He came out in that second half, 7 points, and then he put up 28 points. No special teams, Danny. No defense. It was all Tua.
To an extent, I agree with you that Tua won. Obviously, he had to make the throw. He had to. But I remember before the season started, we were talking about his arm strength and how the season's going to progress. And I told you, people aren't going to respect his arm until he shows that you need to respect his arm. And I think that's exactly what you saw. They're not playing cover 3, cover 4. They're not respecting his deep ball. So they let him. I don't want to say they let him, but even with Tyreek Hill on the field, they said, we're still not going to worry about that.
It was incredible that they were doing that.
But they got burned twice. I promise you, other teams are not going to do that because now they know, okay, if we leave Tyreek open, Tua can get the ball down there. So Tua is going to now have to make those passes a little more contested. He's showed now that he has some arm strength, right? Like that. I think that finally gets thrown out the window. Yes. He can make the throw. Can he do it consistently? We'll see now that he gets challenged. But he showed that he can do it. So I think that the Ravens – I don't want to say that the Dolphins didn't win the game, but I think that the Ravens didn't respect Tua enough to win that game.
And that's what cost them the game is what you're basically saying.
Yes, because Tua won it because he had to make the throw. But the Ravens were stupid in not respecting his arm. He did exactly what I thought. Teams weren't going to respect his arm. And in the first half, they didn't get burned by it. But in the fourth quarter, not even in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter they did.
And that's where I'm going to go with you, Phil, because – obviously, you're going to see them this week, and you've seen them plenty of times. You've already seen them 3 major times, and we'll get into that into a second. But, again, it's an easy excuse to say the Ravens let Tyreek get behind them. But I'm sorry, Tyreek was doing this on the Chiefs. He was getting behind defenses way before he got to the Dolphins. So, again, they've had tape on Tyreek. We know Tua doesn't have an arm. That doesn't mean that we should let Tyreek beat us over the top. You still put a safety to cover him back there. And hope that Tua can't get it to him. But I get what Danny's point. It was a Raven stupidity, but they've had enough tape on Tyreek Hill and they've had enough tape on Jalen Waddle to know that those boys could burn DBs and safeties and get behind them. What was your take on it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. I think that they pressed up because they thought that he's not gonna launch down the field. They're thinking he's gonna try to go in the middle. They're thinking he's gonna try to make these 10 to 15-yard throws, and he's not going to go 20 plus. And again, they're not wrong. I mean, history's shown that his completion percentage drops immensely 20 plus yards. You know what I mean? I think it's like 13, 14 in the league. But again, you got these two guys, these two receivers that could. And I think if I'm getting the stat correctly, only seven attempts have been to someone other than Waddle and Hill in these first 2 games.
Yes.
And so again, I think, Mike Gesicki's not going to be a blocking tight end for you, but he's definitely got great hands and great skill and got great straight speed. The thing of it is that I think like you look at it and you say, yeah, you got to learn from that. Hill will beat you down the field every time. I mean, the kid won stinking, track championships in high school. He could run, he could catch, he could run, he could do it all. I mean, the hard part about it is if you give him space, he's going to burn you. If you give him that straightaway speed down the field, he's going to burn you. So you don't want him to get the ball in the middle of the field with room to run because you're not going to catch him. And the Bills have been on the receiving side of that more times than I like to admit. And when you're sitting there, it's hard to defend someone like that. But I think the fact that they let Tua say, okay, you guys want to press up, we're gonna go down the field and Tua just launch it. You know what I mean? Just so that you have to respect that.
And I think that's the key because Tua said it in the press conference after the game. He said they weren't giving it to us early in the game, but as soon as they gave it to us, we took our opportunities. And that's the greatest response ever. If they're not giving to you, don't force it down there. But if you're going to be dumb enough,
but he did in the first half. That's why he got picked off.
But what I'm saying is he did force it. He learned from it. And then he's like, let them slip up. And then I'm going to take advantage of it. But to your point, Tyreek Hill, 11 catches, 190. Jalen Waddle, 11 catches, 171. Both with 2 touchdowns. Mike Gesicki had 4. Raheem Mostert had 3. Our fullback had 2. But for the most part, yes, 80% of our offense is in those 2 guys. I think as we get down into the nitty gritty of the season, you're going to see a little bit more shift of involving Mike Gesicki more. I think you have to involve Mike Gesicki more because he's such a game changer as well. Like you heard in the clip, I think if he's used to his potential, I think he's the third best tight end in the league. I know I'm crazy because Mark Andrews definitely has a lock on that number 3. The way Mark Andrews, I knew he was good, but he was balling on us. Like this guy, 4 guys are covering him. He's catching the ball and he's dragging 4 guys down the field with him. Mm-hmm. The guy's a problem. But let's get to the nitty gritty. Let's preview Phins versus Bills. And this is why you're here, Phil the Bill. This is why you're here. Let's get the negative out of the way. The last few times we've met the Buffalo Bills, it has not been a very good situation for us.
For us, it was.
Yeah, for you guys, it's been amazing. But for the most part,
they haven't even. 7, I want to say.
They haven't. Shut up. You don't have to get specific about it. It's been bad. It's been bad.
1-1 under McDermott. I was throwing out some facts. It's no big deal.
Well, I heard an interesting fact today.
What is it?
The Bills, the last 20 regular season wins that they have all been by double digits. So, like, when they win convincingly.
They do.
But what happens if they have a close game?
Well, we'll get into that in a second.
What happens if they I'll tell you what happens. They give up a touchdown in the last 13 seconds to Patrick Mahomes.
Wow.
It was a field goal. That's not.
You're right. He got down the field. My fault. That's right.
Yeah, he did.
I appreciate my co-host having the ammo ready for me, but like I said, the last few times we met you guys, it hasn't been close. It hasn't been close. So a lot of that could be game planning. A lot of that could be, like Danny mentioned last week, the stranglehold that Brian Flores put on Tua and not allowing him to be more of himself the way Matt McDaniel's allowing him to be. But I did have a little tidbit from your boy that I kind of wanted to share, and I thoroughly enjoyed his comment.
Tua's playing fantastic right now, which is, it sucks as a Bills fan and a Bills player to see. You don't want to see your division rivals winning football games, but I'm proud of him for all the adversity and stuff and all the naysayers and stuff like that. I can relate to a lot of that. So he's playing really good football right now, and I hate to.
And he is playing really good football, right? And I think
who's playing good football?
Tua. That's who he was talking about. He was talking about his boy Tua, not his boy, but he's a big fan of Tua and he likes the person he is. But at the end of the day, being a nice guy doesn't win you football games. But playing ball the way he is, I think he's number 1 in passing yards right now in the NFL. But obviously having Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki, and Tyreek Hill will probably do that for you. Mm-hmm. But like number 2 is like Carson Wentz. So let's not get too far ahead of ourselves when it comes to those stats.
Number 3 is Joe Flacco.
Yeah. So
let's go there.
Let's not get too crazy right now with the stats. But the fact is, he is playing good ball. So I'm going to go to you, Phil, because you are the guest host here, and it is your Buffalo Bills we're playing. I asked you at the beginning, are these the same old Dolphins that you're going to be playing week 3?
No, God, no. I mean, going into the last seasons, like, and to be fair, Tua got hurt the game that we played in Miami. He went out with the rib injury from. Oh
yeah, you guys destroyed him like second play in the game.
Right. Espineza's like only good play last year. I'm sorry. It was just that pick kind of bugged me.
Only good play.
We just love investing in defensive ends that we have to like put like 4 years of work into before they're actually productive. Except for, I will say, Rousseau has been playing very well. I'll give him that, but he was a first round pick last year, so I'm hoping that we get some.
He's got a sack in every game this year. So
yeah, no, kid's playing great, and even according to Von Miller, he's like, kid's a beast. You know what I mean? He really is. But
I'm sure having Von Miller on the other side helps also.
And by the way, you guys have an amazing D line, but also just want to peg on what you're saying. Besides Rousseau, Jordan Phillips is also playing really well for you guys as well. Our old ex-player, he's playing amazing ball for you guys.
And you know what? For some reason, I swear to God, like he plays well for the Bills. He'll go to other teams and he'll kind of like fall off. He comes back, and they were talking about him having to possibly take a pay cut to stay with us next year because he's only on a 1-year contract. And like some people are like, well, he just has the most productivity here. I would take a pay cut, but I love Jordan Phillips, love the way he's playing. To get into your question, no, these aren't the same old Dolphins. And I think like one thing you got to understand. I mean, think about the first game against the Patriots. Like that's going to be your worst game of the year. first of all, we got a shortened preseason, and I'm not making too big of a deal out of it, but most people don't even play during preseason. Josh Allen played literally one series the entire.
And looked amazing. And he looked amazing in that preseason game.
And the kid, just to derail for 1 second.
Yeah.
One thing I heard about him, which, okay, of course, Buffalo is literally obsessed with Josh Allen. Someone said, they said something equivalent to like, how would you feel if Josh, pulled a, Deshaun Watson or whatever? I'm like, Josh could literally kill someone, and Bills Mafia would raise money to pay for his like legal defense. All right, like every time, that they are in love with that kid is Buffalo. He had to move because people knew where he lived. Like, I mean, it's just like he loves the fans right back. So when I went to LA, I mean, you got 30,000 Bills fans rolling in LA. We had an insane tailgate there. It was just it felt like a home game, for crying out loud. So, but one of the things that they said about him, and I forgot who was one of the announcers on Monday night. They were just saying that, not only does he have the physical gifts, obviously, but then there's that work ethic, but also that he doesn't take things too seriously. He has fun. He loves the game. Like, he loves it. And that's what I think, you appreciate about him, is that, he's going to make those comments about Tua because, he respects the game. He knows what it takes. He was coming out of high school. He didn't get picked up by any Division I program. He had to go to a junior college, and then he had to literally go around handing his tape to everyone until Wyoming offered him a deal. And then he goes from that to being the 7th overall pick. You know what I mean? So, the kid appreciates adversity. You know what I mean? And so you look at Tua, and one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in football was his national championship game against Georgia when he came in. That, against Jake Fromm, they're going back and forth. It was the most, it was just an insane game. Like, I remember just being like, it's one of the best games I've ever seen. And, so I think the kid has a lot of talent. I think that he is a competitor. I think that you guys built a team around him. I think, like you said, you got, one thing is you have to have trust in your quarterback. And I don't care if it gets you killed in games. If you don't trust him, you'll never get past a certain mark. You might be able to manage a few games, come out with a few wins, but if you don't let him go, all right, then what's going to happen is you will never get past that barrier of being a great football team. And we saw it with Josh Allen. We got to this point where, we get to the playoff game against the Texans. We get the 16-0 lead, and then we want to pretend that we're going to coast in on our defensive performance, and we want to rein him in. And then what happens? We end up losing. We get to the AFC Championship game against KC. For some reason, we think that field goals are going to be enough to beat KC, which we all know that's not going to happen. We end up losing. Then you take this previous year's game against KC. You got a 4th down in the red zone. You go for it because now they're like, no, Josh has got to win this. We are an offensive-minded team. We got to let him do what he does and score points. And yes, we did end up losing that game, but it was a much, much closer product.
Agreed.
And it was a much more exciting game. And we should have, aside from a few bad calls at the end of the game, won that game. So I think what you guys have done in Miami, building that team around him, getting him the weapons, getting him the protection up front, and even getting, dynamic running backs involved. You know what I mean? And then your defense is scary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's filled with a ton of talent on that defensive line. You know what I mean? So, it's going to be, you guys are going to be a good team.
And let's talk about that for a second, Danny, because we touched on it that, Tua put up 28 points in the 4th quarter of that Ravens game, right? Mm-hmm. We gave up 28 in the first half. We gave up 10 points in that second half. So whatever the defense was being called in that first half, you could tell it drastically changed in the second half. So now we're moving on to somebody who I feel Lamar Jackson could compare himself or his numbers or what he thinks his contract is worth to Deshaun Watson. That's fine. Put yourself in that spectrum. One spectrum you're never going to be in is in the epitome of Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. Those two guys are the cream of the top right now as far as quarterbacks goes. Do you think our defense can have the same success after, again, many whoopings that we've taken from them? They know what the quarterback is. They know what kind of they know Stephon Diggs. That guy has to be the biggest threat outside of Josh Allen on that team, right? Do you think that our defense is well equipped to now at least not stop them, but make it competitive?
Do you think that your defense played well against the Ravens?
I think they did play well.
I don't think so at all. You guys had 0 sacks. I don't think you touched Lamar Jackson once that game.
Nobody touched
Like-
Lamar Jackson that game.
But that's what I'm saying. And Josh Allen is a better Lamar Jackson.
But what's the goal? The goal is not to let them put up points, and that's kind of where I'm going with that. We only let them put up 10 points in the second half.
But they put up 38 in the game.
That's fine. But again, it was 2 halves.
But what I'm saying is I'm disappointed in the Dolphins defense because I thought they were going to have a strong defense this year.
Yeah.
Obviously, we both thought the Patriots would be horrible offensively.
Yes, we did.
And I also thought that the Ravens would have a hard time scoring on your defense. I predicted that they would put up 17 points maybe.
Yes.
When they had 28 at the half, I was like, I was so disappointed because I expected so much more. When Xavier Howard I'd never seen him get taken to the house almost to the house. But
almost to the house.
I was really disappointed in the Dolphins defense. They got absolutely no pressure. Like what they did the year before on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah. Nowhere
near what we saw this way. And then when they finally brought the house, he ran it in for 70-yard touchdown himself?
Yes, he did.
Or 60 yards. So because I saw what Lamar Jackson did.
So you're not giving him the credit. You're not giving him the credit of what they did in the second half to only give him 10 points.
Second half or one quarter.
Second half.
Because they scored 38 in 3 quarters.
Yes.
So they played one good defensive quarter. They played one really good offensive quarter. To me, the defense has looked average for 7 quarters now.
I'm not disagreeing with you. That's why I wanted your input on what you
think. But again, I expected a lot more. I was very surprised the way that the Ravens handled them for 3 quarters. Again, you guys won the game, and they showed up when it counts. But you can't discount the fact that they got outplayed for 3 quarters.
Well, so that's my question to you. Do you think that we're going to show up when it counts this upcoming week when we play the Buffalo Bills?
You're playing against the best team in the NFL.
Yes, we are.
Okay. I don't think so.
All right. Fair enough. We're gonna get into that in a second here. Phil, one of the things about your team is, like he said, you guys are, for me, I said, I see you guys in the AFC Championship game. I didn't want to say Super Bowl because I haven't done a Super Bowl pick yet. But I told him from the get-go, I think you guys for sure, by far, are winning this division. I always felt like we're going to be in second, Patriots in third, and unfortunately the New York Jets in 4th place. Could that swap at any time? I think it can, just because if the Jets play again like they just played last week, you never know because the Patriots still don't.
But you're talking about swapping 3 and 4, but like you two are on the top. Okay, yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So my question is here: you guys are facing some secondary issues coming into this game, and the Ravens were facing some secondary issues coming into that game, and we didn't take advantage in the first half, but I think we took advantage in the second half. Micah Hyde, I believe, is a neck injury. One of your other corners is also suffering some, I don't want to say an ankle, but I think it's an ankle. You already know what to expect offensively from us. Obviously, you guys are going to put up points. I think we'll stop you a couple of drives here and there, but I think for the most part, you guys are going to put up points. Do you think your defense is ready for that speed, being that you're banged up in the secondary?
Let's go over that for a second, Manny, because that is a great point. So I get the list of the injury report, which is just it's almost like our roster in a way. We got our safety, Micah Hyde, with a neck injury. He did not participate in practice. Cornerback Dane Jackson, neck injury. We all saw him go off in an ambulance. Luckily, they said he was clear. He didn't have any spinal injuries. Yes. That was a scary hit.
Yes, it was. By his own player, Tremaine Edmonds.
Right. And but he didn't practice. You got cornerback Cam Lewis. He's a little injured, but again, he was a full participant. Linebacker Matt Milano, who had the nice pick 6, and had probably the best game of his career on Monday Night Football. He's got a neck injury, but he was a full participant. You got defensive tackle Ed Oliver and Jordan Phillips. Ed Oliver was limited with an ankle. Jordan Phillips hamstring, didn't practice. Safety, the other safety, Jordan Poyer. He was limited, and defensive tackle Tim Settle has a calf injury, and he was limited. So
basically, your whole team is done.
Your whole defense is gone. Yeah. So all our safeties, and then Trey White is still on the injury reserve list, so he's not going to be back until he's going to have to miss 4 games.
4 weeks, yeah.
Maybe being back week 8.
Week 5. Okay, week 8.
Well, they could be back week 5, but they're saying they're probably not going to push it, just because
Okay.
we have a bye week and they'll probably come back after that. So, and then, on the offensive side of things, Dawson Knox didn't practice with a foot injury. Gabe Davis is still questionable, and Mitch Morse, our center. So yeah, it's not looking good for us. Do I think that is going to leave? It's going to make it a very interesting game because, like you said, I think the key is, and I think the Dolphins understand this too, especially given what happened last week, is put up points. Josh will get his points. Josh is one of the most competitive human beings I've ever seen. In fact, sometimes too competitive because even in the LA game, you're like, dude, you're up 2 scores, stop running. Stop trying to get yourself injured because seriously, like, that's the last thing we need. Like, we're good, stop running. So he's very competitive. I think they need to let Tua go. I think that they need to let him do what he does and let the receivers do what they do and continue that momentum coming off, the second half of the game against Baltimore, because I think it's going to be a high scoring game. Like, I would definitely bet the over on this one. You got a banged up Bills defense. Now, the only thing I could say is that, notoriously getting pressure onto his cause to make mistakes. We do have all our defensive ends, so maybe we could do that, but we're going to have to do that, and we're going to have to account for, because, again, our linebackers were great in coverage. Tremaine Edmonds is someone who has a lot of speed, a lot of speed to kind of, be able to get back, get up. Milano is a great coverage linebacker, but I don't know if he's going to go. You know what I mean? Well, they said he had a stinger, so he might actually go. But again, it's still going to be tough with all these injuries.
I personally think that being that your guys are all questionable, I think they're all going to play. So I just wanted to bring it up in case they don't play. What kind of fear did that put in your heart that if it does become a shootout, would it turn into a Kansas City and you guys lose in the last possession? Very well. We're going to predict that here in a second, but they're all questionable. I think they're all going to play. Being that they're all going to play, like you said, your defensive line is amazing. Our offensive line has actually improved, and you could tell on the field. Connor Williams has done a huge bang-up job at center for us. He's naturally a guard.
Greg Little played great last week.
Greg Little, thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Greg Little.
I thought you were going to ask, like, who was the standout player last week, and I was ready. I was like, Greg Little, because he had one hell of a game.
I appreciate that you say that because guess what? We didn't say his name not once in the game. And anytime that you're an offensive lineman and they don't say your name, it's because you're doing a great job. Austin Jackson should not get back on the field. Leave Greg Little at right tackle. Because whatever he thought he faced against the Ravens, it's going to get that much worse against the Buffalo Bills. He had a cohesive unit. Teron Armstead, another huge game. Connor Williams, like you said, Greg Little, thank you so much for bringing that up. I did not want to forget about that. But let's go into the best part. The Battered Phins fans prediction time. And I want to pick last this time. So, Danny, I'm going to let you pick first. You gave your 2 cents about the defense and how you felt about them, that you're kind of disappointed in them.
I am. I'm disappointed.
You do like what Tua's done. You do like the speed we have with our receivers, but ultimately, you know the history. You know what the Buffalo Bills knows. And like you said, when it comes to division games, you feel like you can't predict them as accurately because they're division games. Like maybe you want to go and say we're going to put up 40 points because these two teams know each other so well. Sometimes you don't want to go that route. Now, you know the Buffalo is coming down to Miami. Let me just give you a quick one. The Miami Dolphins
on a short week,
right? The Miami Dolphins are 5.5-point underdogs at home. The ESPN tracker has Buffalo Bills at 62% as favorites. What's your prediction for this game?
Well, I don't think they could stop the Bills' offense. Like I said, I was disappointed the way that they were with the Ravens. I mean, the Jets, which don't have nowhere near as good a defense as the Bills have or the Dolphins should have, they contained Lamar Jackson in the pocket. So I was surprised that the Dolphins weren't able to get to Lamar Jackson. I think that the fact that the Bills' secondary is a little banged up, Jordan Poyer is probably going to play, but I don't know about anybody else. I think that that's going to bode well for you guys. I don't think they're going to get beat over the top like the Ravens did. I think the Bills win, but this is the game where that streak ends. That NFL record where they have 20 in a row where they win by double digits, I think they win, but they win a close game. If I have to put a number on it, I'd say 27-23.
I like that. All right, Phil, you're the guest host. You are the infamous Buffalo Phil the Bill here. So give me your prediction for this game.
So I originally was going with – I thought a lot about this because I was like can I say this, though, before I give my prediction?
Yeah, of course.
am not confident about this prediction at all.
Okay.
Like this is a, this is a very.
Is this coming from the gut, the heart, or the head? Where's it coming
the
from
gut.
here?
Well,
Okay.
I mean, you're a Bills fan. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I love my team, always support my team, and literally travel across the country to see my team.
Yes, he
And
does.
I don't think I missed a game since I've been down in Florida, which is 16 years, Miami Bills game. In fact, my parents just flew in for the game today. So I will say that you're hesitant to get so excited, and in fact, it's a very weird feeling having the expectations. That's actually a very weird feeling for us. But I originally went with 35-27 Bills. I'm actually changing it to 27-24 Bills for the reason that I think that the Dolphins are going to run the ball. I think they're going to want to get that run game going, which they haven't been able to do all season. Not to the level that I think they want to. And we got a very banged up interior defensive line, so they're going to have that opportunity to control the clock and run the game. And I think they'll have success. I mean, we saw what Jonathan Taylor did to us last year. Now, I will say that I'm extremely that the best thing about Monday Night Football for me was holding Derrick Henry to 25 total yards and on 13 carries. I think he was averaging 1.5 yards a carry. And that is an area that we've literally gotten lit up. We lost the game against, New England on that Monday night snow game when it was like storming and everything because they just ran. We knew they passed it twice and they ran all over us and we knew what was happening. It was the most frustrating game. I thought my son was going to have a meltdown. So like the whole point is that I think that's what will happen. I do have confidence that Josh could bring us through this, but I think it's going to be a lot closer than I originally predicted. I'm saying 27-24.
Okay. I like it. So Danny knows how I feel. Danny knows.
Right.
Danny knows how I feel about the Buffalo Bills. If there's one team that scares me, it's the Buffalo Bills. Now, NFL Network had 10 people pick this game. One person out of 10 picked the Miami Dolphins to win, and even the one that picked it, 3 points. It could go either way. When you're picking a game between 3 points, it could go either way.
Yeah.
ESPN, who they picked, all 5 of their analysts all picked the Buffalo Bills to win this game. Never in a million years would I thought that I would see Tua Tagovailoa have more yards throwing than Josh Allen. Currently, Josh Allen is at 614. Tua is at 739. If there's a time to beat the Buffalo Bills, I think it's now. You got to sit home and watch them on Monday Night Football. They're in your division. You know what Josh Allen brings to the table. So I think you have that extra preparation, and they're on a short week. And we say short week, I get it. They played Monday, but they're right back to work on a Tuesday. They're already watching film for the Dolphins. They saw the previous week. So people call it a short week. I think a short week is like playing Sunday, then you have to play Thursday. That's what I consider a short week. But for the most part, what I saw from the defense in the second half, no matter the credit this man does not want to give my team, what I saw from Tua in that fourth quarter.
Okay.
What I saw from him in general with his accurate passing, like if you're not going to give me the top, I'm going to chew you down the field with very short, accurate passing. Slant routes were – listen, Jalen Waddle had a lot of uncharacteristic drops during that game. I mean, like in his hands, he was dropping them. I don't think that happens this week in Miami. The fans are going to be crazy. I feel like I'm wrong, but I don't care. I'm going with the same score that you gave, Phil, of 27-24, but I'm going Dolphins 27-24. If Micah Hyde or Jordan Poyer, if one of those guys miss, I think that you having a not so good safety over there might mess up a few times to get somebody behind that defense. I think our offense has the opportunity. I say we have to get you guys a couple of 4-and-outs. I don't know how often that's going to happen. If you give me 3 to 4 4-and-outs throughout the whole game, I think you could check that off as a win, because Josh Allen, is very hard to get him off the field. I mean, like every single time this man steps on the field, I feel like he's putting up 7 no matter what. Whether it's him, whether it's his legs, whether it's his running backs, receiver side, it is what it is. That offensive firepower you guys have is scary. But for some reason, I'm kind of feeling that if there's time, I think we're going to get whooped when we go to Buffalo. But right now, I think it's time for us to win, and I think we're winning this game.
Yeah. And you got one of the best kickers in the league too. Let's not forget about that.
Do.
And I was listening to a different podcast, and they alluded to the fact that the holding issues stopped, so that he's pretty much a lock, beyond that 40-yard line. So, it's I'm telling you, man, I'm not confident. You know what I mean? I if there was ever a time I should be confident, it's now. But it's just when you have a team's number, they're due for one. You guys have got all the weapons that you needed to kind of make that happen. Let's just say that
so at least get us marginally closer to where we were before, because we have the offensive power to at least keep up with you. It's just a matter of trying to get you guys off the field, I feel.
Well, I think Gabe Davis not playing is going to be a big deal also if he doesn't play.
Yeah, I mean, and again, Jake Kumaro caught a couple big passes, and he was able to kind of step up. He's a great blocking receiver, and again, you got Knox, and we're gonna have to rely on some young talent, So I don't know. It's gonna be a fun game. Let's just say that much. It's gonna be a fun game. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, we come out on top. But I'll tell you, it can go either way.
Unfortunately, I'm rooting for a tie.
You know what? I wouldn't mind that at all either. Listen, we're up against the clock here. I will not be at the game, unfortunately, this time, so I will not be able to talk some shit with you at the stadium. I'm going to be out of town. But thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciated that you took time out of your day, especially with your family coming into town, to come and talk some shit with us. It was a pleasure having you, brother.
Thanks for having me, guys. This is actually a lot of fun, man. I had a good time.
I'll make sure to bring you back when we play you again. This was the Battered Phins podcast. That is the Battered Jet fan himself, Danny G. That was Phil the Bill, the Lip. Thank you so much for joining us. Catch you guys next time.
Just Lip, man. It's just Lip, not the Lip.